Turkey's incumbent President Erdogan has been declared winner of Turkey's runoff election.
I would like to thank each and every member of our nation who has once again given us the responsibility of governing the country for the next 5 years with the choice they have made.
All right, the announcement made a short time ago will extend Erdogan's rule into a third decade. The election was triggered 2 weeks ago when neither main candidate got more than 50% of the initial vote. Erdogan's grip on power was challenged by a coalition of groups from the left. The biggest issues in the campaign may sound familiar to American voters. Turkey is facing soaring inflation and growing questions over its immigration policies. Let's bring in now Aaron David Miller. He is a former State Department Middle East negotiator. Good to see you. So how was Erdogan able to pull off yet another victory?
Two quick takeaways on this, Fred. It's really hard once an authoritarian becomes entrenched in power in order for an opposition candidate to win. Erdogan controlled the press. He packed the Supreme Election Committee with his appointees. He's imprisoned opposition members. And he's been in power either as prime minister or president since 2003. So that's 20 plus years of learning how to manipulate the system. The other reason, I think, tacks to your point about inflation in the economy. The reality is identity in this election mattered more than pocketbook issues. Some of the worst hit areas of the recent earthquake, which claimed over 50,000 lives in Syria and Turkey, were among the most avid supporters of the president. So he plays to identity, he plays to Islam, he plays to the nation, to nationalism. And he tries to paint Turkey as a victim of LGBTQ, a victim of Western imperialists, parens, namely the United States, close parens. And he's tried to link his opponent and the nation alliance of the 6 parties that he formed to Kurdish terrorism. So it's identity on one hand, and it's just being a smart authoritarian on the other. It's a lesson, cautionary tale, frankly, for all of us.
Is Turkey's proximity another way in which Erdogan is able to kind of wield, power? Turkey's neighbors include Iran, Iraq, Russia, and Europe, and that he's had 2 decades experience leading that country. Is that also how he kind of leveraged a win?
I think you're right here. Geography, in many respects, for a nation is destiny. And Turkey straddles east and west. On one hand, it's a member of NATO, even while Erdogan must, for economic and political reasons, maintain very close ties to Vladimir Putin. So, yeah, I think he has a very problematic relationship with the United States, even though he's a member of NATO. And other than Ukraine, probably the most powerful military in the alliance. So, yeah, he's traded on his foreign policy expertise and his capacity to play any number of different angles. Very good relationship these days with the Israelis as a way to endear himself to the Americans. So, yeah, he's cagey and he's good at keeping his seat, Fred.
So good relationship with Israelis, but not such a great relationship with the Biden administration. Now what?
Well, that's a very good question. Then we'll see what the next 5 years brings. But I think he wants to improve relations with Washington. The Russians sold him a very sophisticated air defense system, which caused the Biden administration even before to suspend Turkey's participation in the F-35 program. But I think he does want to mend relations with Washington. Now, what price he's going to have to pay to do that is unclear. But Turkey is a player, and Erdogan, as I mentioned, has proven remarkably adept, even though this election really did challenge his power base. Turkey is still a very divided nation, and at the head sits a man who's determined to maintain its authoritarian character, maintain its relevance in the region, and maintain his personal rule. And it is the cult of personality, Fred, that I think helped him win this latest round.
All right. Aaron David Miller, great to see you this weekend. Thank you so much.
Bulent Alireza is a senior associate with the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you both for continuing to be with us for what is this special coverage of the presidential elections. As you sit now and reflect on what has happened in Turkey, and of course what happens in Turkey doesn't stay in Turkey. Bulent, your thoughts at this point?
Yeah, one important point before speculating about what will happen in the future is in the immediate future. It looks like Mr. Erdogan is going to be making a speech from the presidential palace rather than from the AK Party headquarters, and that's symbolically important because 2 weeks ago he was a candidate of the AKP. Now he is the re-elected president. So I think that's going to be an even more significant speech from there than it would have been if he'd done it from the party headquarters. My thoughts, look, Mr. Erdogan is the best politician Turkey has ever seen and will probably ever see. I exclude Kemal Atatürk because he was not a politician; he was the founder of the state. But he's been dominating Turkish politics like a colossus, and his longevity is remarkable. 2 decades. He's gone into his third decade. Has he been successful in every aspect of statecraft? By no means. No, he has not been. Economy is going through a very difficult period. Foreign policy, we were talking about the rapprochement with the neighboring countries, but that's largely because of the overreach before that actually created problems with those states. And he's retreated to a position where he's actually seeking a rapprochement to go back to where, in essence, where Turkey was with those countries. And there are definite limits on some aspects of that rapprochement, like with Syria. The Syrian government has made very clear that it will not proceed to the kind of rapprochement that Mr. Erdogan wants until and unless Turkish troops are withdrawn, and that clearly is not on. And there's the question of the refugees, which dominated the discussion during the past week or so, largely because Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu was pushing it. Where do you send them to? The Syrian refugees, clearly Assad does not want them. They don't want to go back, to themselves to a country dominated by Assad. So that issue is not going to go away. What's going to be his legacy? I think more and more we, and more importantly, Mr. Erdogan himself, will be thinking about his legacy. Now, he's certainly established, Turkey as perhaps a more tolerant country towards those who are religious. It was not the case before under the secular establishment, and that's a major factor in why in the heartland in Anatolia and in the poorer parts of Istanbul, Ankara, and other cities, people are still loyal to him despite all the problems that he's faced. This was the most difficult election he faced because of the worsening economic situation, the post-earthquake difficulties, and yet, in spite of the desire for change that was there, which is understandable after 20 years of the AKP, he was able to win. Now, what does he do with his victory? Now, I don't think there's not going to be much magnanimity. I think he's going to to continue as before because he will feel vindicated. But his immediate problem is going to be the economy. There's very little confidence in the unorthodox economic model on the part of potential investors beyond Turkey's borders. I confidently expect him to appoint Mr. Şimşek, the previous economic supremo, perhaps as vice president or the treasury secretary, in order to try and establish a different environment in which there could be investment in Turkey, foreign direct investment of the kind that existed before. That's going to be at the top of his agenda. Foreign affairs, of course, will come second. And third, and although nobody will talk about it within the AKP, is what happens to him and to his party after he goes. Now, that may be 5 years from now. It may be even more than that. But certainly, I think he himself will be thinking about it, although very few people will talk about it.